Okay. Yeah, this is definitely going to be, I think, a temporary look, but it is comfortable.
The chair's comfortable,
Yeah, but this is kind of a
but
I don't know, I feel
am I
pretty
taller than you right
I
now?
feel pretty sleazy right now.
Why?
It's 'cause I don't know.
Why?
I don't know, I'm lounging on a couch.
Oh, you got something in your teeth right there.
Oh, thanks.
Probably a vegetable.
Yes,
No, right in the middle.
we're gonna go with a vegetable.
Wait, why do you feel like you're slouching when you're sitting on a couch?
I don't know, I'm just kinda kicked back.
Isn't that a good thing?
Yes, it's a good thing.
I'm so sorry. I thought it'd be a good in your pocket sometime. You're a
Oh,
hot
wow.
mess, Rusty.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
I
Coffee.
got my sidekick zipping my pockets. So, um, some
Hmm,
people
I don't know that I have sidekick energy.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we're both main characters.
Well, thanks for that. I I like to think that, but who knows if that's really true.
Yeah, of course it's true.
So, some people, when they talk about mindset,
Mhm.
they like to talk about they like to go to people like former Navy SEALs, like David Goggins. He's got a good mindset.
He would come on here in a heartbeat.
But for me, I go to the lady that built a six-figure real estate business while homeschooling my monster children.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah, it's a good place to
Yeah.
start.
Plus also who you had access to.
Yeah, that's true. I wasn't currently married to David Goggins.
Exactly.
Just
You
putting
can't
it
have,
out
like,
there.
bedroom conversations with David Goggins.
David, am I gonna make it?
Oh, what if I laugh too loud for your podcast, Rusty?
Well,
You have
then
to
we're
just mute me.
we're both screwed.
No, no, no,
We're loud people.
I have a hackling laugh like a witch.
Do you?
Yeah, it's
Well,
kind
it's
of evil.
October.
It's appropriate.
No, but seriously, like, mindset for me has been it's something that I've been fascinated with for even as a kid. I can remember wondering why some people make it, you know, I guess that's air quotes because making it can mean lots of things, but I guess
Yep.
in whatever they want to do in life, why do some people make it and some people don't? It's always been something that's fascinated me, and honestly, it's also pretty depressing because you see
Oh,
ton
yeah.
tons of examples
Mhm.
of people that don't. So for you, like in a business sense, I guess, because real estate is insane,
Yeah.
how where did that mindset come from?
I have no idea, but I thank the stars and God and the universe and everybody for it all the time.
So is it something that you've just always had?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go dig way deep, and I don't have a great memory. I
You're
think
very helpful.
I think you need to hypnotize me to go there. I don't know. Okay, I will say this. Um, when I feel like mindset, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I think mindset is developed when things are really dark, and so you have those places where you're like, Am I gonna sit in this, or and just take it as if this is in my lot in life, or am I gonna fight it?" And maybe that's where it came from. I like to fight. And so maybe it came out of that,
So, I mean, but it
like
sounds
survivorship.
yeah, but okay, but even okay, I love that we're going into your dark backstory
I don't really
like a
wanna
s
go, we're
like
not going
like
there.
a superhero.
No, 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 we're not going there.
How did you find your way to Wayne Manor? No, okay, but even that, I mean, I see what you mean, but even that, people, different personalities look at that different ways.
Yeah,
Certain personalities, whatever everyone has their own version of like hardship, and certain personalities would take it personal and wouldn't fight, or
I mean,
maybe
I
they.
took it personal, not gonna lie. It
But
wasn't pleasant.
you know what I mean, though. Certain personalities that would be like, well, I guess God is just that's just it. He's just punishing me. I'm screwed, and why even try? But then
Oh, yeah,
certain
no.
personalities like yours,
I
it
don't
it
know
be
that it's a personality thing, though. I
you
don't know what it is, to be honest. I don't think it's a personality thing.
I mean,
'Cause
okay,
different people with different personalities overcome things.
yeah, I guess. I mean, so then I would use the word mindset. Well, I guess I'm using the word personality and mindset almost
Oh,
interchangeably, but that's probably not
that makes sense.
accurate.
Yeah, for sure.
And so because well, okay, so this is why I love having this conversation with you because I was there. I watched you build your business, and first of all, real estate is an insane industry to try and build a business in.
Yes, but also, like, I don't feel like I had a choice, like, we had to have the money to, because I knew the teenage age was coming, so we'd have to buy cars, insurance, and all that, and so that had to happen, so it's not like there was a choice, and I think the book, what's the guy, Brendan Burchard's book, when he talks about his was it 6 habits of
7,
7 habits?
maybe.
Not Stephen Covey's, no. Brendan Burchard's book, he's like the 6, oh, Jesus. I gotta look this up. It's
Hang on,
the habits
I'll look it
of
up. You keep talking, I'm gonna look
okay,
it up.
okay, okay. But anyways, one of the habits he talks about specifically is the fact that it's necessity. It's like genius is it what is the mother of necessity? I can't do any quotes. That's not definitely not my gift. But it's the idea that I didn't have a choice. So something had to happen. So then when your brain in my head, my brain said, "Well, I don't have a choice. I can't not." So then it's, "Well, then how am I going to?"
Oh.
Does that make it's not like it's like literally the wall is, "You can't go here. You can't go here." Like, I can't prostitute my body to make money.
Well, OnlyFans wasn't around back then.
I know, right? And then I can't, like, work, like, an office job, even though I have a skill set there because I needed to be flexible for the kids' schedule because your schedule was so intense and crazy. So I had to find, well, how can I? What can I do? And so it's that sense of necessity is one of the things that he talks about in his book. Yeah, the high performance habits, nothing with numbers.
So I'm struggling to see where the 6
Yeah,
habits.
it's inside the book.
Oh,
You gotta
okay.
open it up. But one of his things is creating necessity for yourself. And so a
Uh,
lot of times people live very comfortably or they've been coddled. Oh God, that's a mean word to say, but they've had I'm not
are you
bitter.
trying to trigger me?
I'm not bitter. But no, no, no. Like some people have an easy life. So kudos to them that they've had an easy life. But then how does that affect their mindset?
Oh, that's a good
And I don't
question.
know. I think some people maybe don't need the hardship. Like, what if I'm just stubborn dumbass who needed the hardship to force myself to have a certain mindset versus other people can live a very comfortable life and still have that mindset regardless?
Well, okay, that is a fascinating question because I feel like the only okay, if you're lucky, and you shouldn't feel bad about this,
No, of
if you're
course not.
lucky and you've grown up with
No,
like great parents and great money and all these opportunities, that's amazing.
that's a gift.
That's what we want the whole world to have.
Exactly.
But I think, and I don't know because that's not where I'm at, but I feel like the people that are in those positions, the ones that truly continue to grow are the ones that do what you say. They on purpose put very difficult things, whether it's like I'm going to wake up and jump into an ice bath, I'm going to
Yes.
hire an insane militant personal
Mm,
trainer to
yeah.
punish me an hour a day.
Or they're gonna run 50 miles or they're gonna do whatever. Like when I look at people out in the world that are very successful, a lot of them intentionally have so much they have comfort all around them because they came to this level of success, but then they create hardship in their life, so they have to create the mental push to get over that. So they create a hardship in their life, so they have the necessity. Or they put something on their list like, "Hey, I wanna give away $500,000," or "I wanna do this," or "I wanna do that." And it requires them to have the necessity to back up that so it's not just motivation based because you can't obviously wait for the motivation to always be there because it just doesn't work that way with motivation.
Oh yeah. Well, that's like with writing. That's one of the best quotes that I think I heard it on like an interview, but the guy was saying he was a professional, I think, screenwriter, and he was saying that the inspiration always follows the work, if that makes sense. He's
Yeah.
like amateur writers wait till they're inspired and then run over and they'll write for a little bit and then it just sort of fades.
Mhm.
He said that's the difference. Professional writers, they know that it's just work. It's like a
Mhm.
job.
Yeah.
So
That was for me.
that oh,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. So then, but okay, but even talking about the mindset, so we talked about successful people that incorporate, if life isn't dealing them the hardship, then they bring it on themselves because they know that's how you grow. Even that is still a mindset that
Yeah,
they've had
they've
the
acquired because I don't feel like they feel like victims. And I think there's a huge element in mindset is victimhood, and to what degree you have to break yourself out of victimhood.
yes, yes, and I feel like certain personalities struggle with that. And
I wonder
ironically,
why.
I don't know. I think it's probably if you're idealistic. Um,
Versus being a cynic.
I don't know because I feel like I'm both. I feel like I'm both idealistic and cynical at
Yeah,
the
but in
same
different
time,
areas.
but in different areas because I know because in my life you pointed out ways you're like, well, okay, so like if you know, from my point of view, I'm like, well, I go to work, I work hard, blah blah blah. You know, I've had difficult, careers that required discipline and sacrifice and all that stuff, but yet I still had sort of a victim mindset because I felt trapped. It's
Mhm.
like I enjoyed the job and I felt like I was doing something important, but because it was so demanding on my personal life, but I also didn't feel like there was any other option, and so it's sort of in a weird way, I was like feeling victimized by that career choice.
And but I think it's normal for everybody to feel victimized by certain things in life. I think it's in that moment, do you realize that you're feeling victimized and you choose, I'm going to stay a victim or not? Or do some people just not even realize that that's actually what's going on? And is that the difference? Like, do people, when people have awareness about it and they actually look at it and be like, oh, I feel like a victim, like they have awareness up here that I feel a certain way, do they choose, I am a victim? Or do they say, I'm not a victim. I'm not gonna act like a victim. I'm gonna make this my own.
Okay, so I don't know. I mean, that awareness is such a difficult thing to acquire.
And is it emotional intelligence, or is there something else that drives that? I
But
wish somebody was a psychologist that could answer that question for us.
yeah. But, I mean, maybe yeah, me too, but I mean, could they? I mean, they could probably give you, like, the sort of
Oh,
the
I bet there's a book out there somewhere. Maybe we can find it. That'd be
yeah.
fun.
Well, because the idea of self-reflection or being, self-aware, it's like, it's so difficult because it can be very painful.
Well, yeah, you have to be brave and face it and be
Yeah.
honest.
Well, and if
All
you're
the
not
hard things.
yeah, and if you're not taught that way growing up to be aware of your own emotions and aware of your, I guess, your motivations,
Mhm.
then where are you gonna you might
Mine was religion. Like, no kidding. Like, oh, this is so funny. I just had this memory. I remember, there's a verse in the Bible that says something about, oh god, been a minute.
come on, babe.
It's in there.
We'll speed this part up in the edit.
Something about search me and know me. And then the way my Bible wrote it, it was like, "And see if there's any something in me." I can't remember what it was. It probably said sin or something like that. But I think in my head, I looked at it was always literally that was my daily prayer as a little girl, like, "Search me and know me, and like, teach me in your way."
About yourself?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Isn't that bizarre?
Huh. That's a dangerous thing to pray.
Ugh, I prayed it a lot.
No, it's in a
And
good
it
I mean, I
and
say
it
that
led me to
jokingly.
some really good things because I felt like it was a habit of self-awareness from a young, young age.
Wow. That's interesting.
That's bizarre.
Huh.
I'm just now making that connection.
I hate the fact that I said that's a dangerous prayer because someone well, because that's where
Feel dangerous for
yeah, but
sure.
that's a bad mindset in and of itself
Speaking
because
of,
yeah, because someone told me that because I used to because I was very, like, very much religious when I was younger, and I would pray, like, for, whatever, like, for wisdom and for I forget what else it
patience. They
was,
always say never
patience.
pray for pray for that.
Yeah, and I'm like, I hate that like superstitious,
Oh god, yeah, no.
like, well,
Well,
you better not pray that or
better
God.
not pray that so you don't have to live it. I'm like, but what? Then you
Yeah,
miss out on life and you miss out on growth. And first of all, I don't believe we grow. Okay, this is probably my bad mindset, but I don't believe we grow without a little bit of hardship, like a touch of it. It doesn't have to be like, do we really grow without pain? The way we grow
ugh,
our muscles is through pain. The way we grow, like the way we digest food, the food goes through
it
it.
hurts.
Well, especially if
Why?
you don't
Oh
have enzymes.
God.
No, but like even the food has to be like broken down. Like
Yeah,
nature says break it down and it relives and so or it comes back to life. Like that's what like are
or
we
it goes in
not
the toilet.
well, but that even goes into the things and fertilizes whatever's. But does that make sense? So
Yeah.
it's like to me, nature speaks that growth comes through breaking things down.
Mm.
That even the big in like the coaching world and whatever, it's oh God, I wish I was good at saying, but I'm not. And it is like 3 words. It's something
Break
about
it down.
the breakthrough happens in the breakdown. And I probably
Ooh.
totally said that wrong, but that's the idea of
Ooh,
it.
I
It's like
like
when
it.
you break down, that's where the breakthrough is about to happen. And that's, I think that's part of the mindset. And so that's why you do pray the prayers or in praying a prayer, if you're not religious, is setting that intention, that you want to look at yourself. You have the openness to look at yourself and be honest with yourself.
Mm. Well, what's funny about the whole idea of being comfortable, or I guess seeking comfort, because I know for me, I'm like a routine guy, and I was having this thought recently driving to work, and I because the one thing the military really teaches you, probably more than anything else, is how to be comfortable being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I can remember I was having this thought about growth and what makes you grow, and do you have to be uncomfortable, or does it have to be painful to grow? And I was kind of thinking, well, all the most intense periods of growth in my life have always come from pain or discomfort or putting myself out there and doing something new that I'm terrified of. And then I was like, well, crap. I tend to seek comfort and routine, and man, I just wish.
And that's the human nature. Our
Yeah,
brains are actually wired, like our lizard brain is wired for that.
your lizard
No,
brain.
seriously, it is. It's meant to protect you. So anything that's new and unfamiliar, your lizard brain says, I don't know about that. Let's get comfortable again. Let's not do that.
Yeah,
We can't do that.
we sabotage ourselves in that way.
Well, technically, yeah, unless you have a protocol of self-awareness, unless you have that time, and that's where meditation to me is so big, or just a setting aside time to think, because then I'm allowing myself to be open and process through. Okay, what is my, and it's not even that I ask anything specific. It's just having time to think and letting my brain process through what's going on. And then there's
Man,
this other idea. Fascinating. You want to hear it?
yes,
The idea that we all have, there's different levels of brain evolvement. I just made up a word, but
evolution.
evolution, thank you. And one is that the lizard brain, see if I can put it in the right words. One is that the lizard brain like takes control and doesn't see comfort all the way to the one where the people make the decisions in different ways. That's part of the evolution of the brain, but it applies to the same thing because when your brain is super comfort oriented, it only wants comfort and you let that be the brain pathway and the neurons that fire and that's how your brain functions and you've allowed that, you've never challenged it. It kinda means that you have to follow somebody else to tell you what's true.
Oh man.
And so then if you have started to wire your brain in a way that allows you to be open-minded to question, then your brain kinda jumps into a different evolution, so to speak, where you can hold the 2 contrasting thoughts in your same brain at the same time, so you can kinda have a critical thinking moment about that thought, about the thoughts and how they, combat each other or compete
Yeah.
against each other. That's always fascinating, but I think that also plays into why are some people, I don't know if it does or not, but that's part of my thing about, like, maybe that's the difference in how different people approach mindset
Oh.
because their
Well,
brain's been wired different.
yeah. Well, okay, so that's how my brain worked. That's where my self-awareness came from, but it literally, well, I was gonna say it came from listening to podcasts, and it did because getting different points of view from very smart people that I very much disagreed with, and I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. I couldn't disagree with this person more, but then on the same token, they're what they're saying does make sense and
Mhm.
who they are as a person and like the social proof of their existence and their life and what whether it's their research or their practice or whatever, whoever the person is, if it's a scientist or a psychologist or whatever. And that's what really kicked my brain into that gear of like, well, wait a minute, I've always believed and been taught this, but then now there's this other point of view that like I could literally sit there in my mind and argue these things back and forth
Mhm.
and feel pretty well convinced equally.
Yeah, that's always fun.
And so I think that's important, but but you can also run yourself in circles
Well, you don't
with
have to,
that.
like, spend your whole day thinking about it, but it's
Yeah.
definitely important to be able to evaluate yourself and carry that.
It's a good tool for self-reflection.
Yeah.
You're right about that. Because it lets you know and I try to do it as much as I can because I'll okay, so I was sitting in traffic this morning coming back from taking Maddox to the doctor and also there was a lot of traffic going there. And I'm griping about traffic as a lot of it was construction related. And then I laughed because I'm like, well, but I would also be griping if they didn't work on the roads and the roads were full of potholes and crappy, then I would
Mhm.
be so I guess even in little ways that kind of I try to make sure I keep myself that check and
And then there's
balance.
also the same what touches on what you're talking about is also the idea of what if it's not about figuring out what's right? What if some personalities or people are more open to just it's okay that there doesn't have to be a right way to do things. Like, there's not just a one way to do things for people.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree with that because that was one of the things about that religion messed me up so bad was the idea that there was a specific path, a specific almost like a formula to life, and if you were following that formula or that path, you were good, and but if you strayed outside of it, and you might not even know it, then you're basically gonna incur God's wrath,
And you're
and
gonna get screwed
that's terrifying.
terribly. Yeah.
That's a whole that'd be a good conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole whole 'nother
Um,
conversation. Yeah.
but, thinking back to introducing uncomfortable things in your life on purpose, kudos because because for me personally, life has always given me plenty of that.
Oh, yeah.
But kudos to the person that does it on purpose.
Yeah, of course.
Because
Absolutely.
that is true discipline.
Mhm.
But the reason I thought of that is because I've had I've had careers like law enforcement, military, where everyone associates, oh, that's you see in the movies that's discipline and it is. It's its own kind of discipline, and especially if you're going through training phases and they're screaming and you're running around like
Mhm.
crazy, and everyone associates that with discipline. But to me, true discipline is what I saw you do with your real estate business. Like no one's telling you what to do, and this is and then when I was trying to build my own business, this is what I struggled with because no one's telling you what to do
Mm.
and but yet you have to do something.
Yeah. You have to tell yourself you have to be your own boss. I remember thinking I had just had a realization, like, one day where I was like in the very beginning, I was like, "Oh, I'm my own boss. Oh, I gotta tell myself what to do. Oh,
Oh,
I listened to
shit.
myself."
No, seriously,
But
that
I
is
enjoyed that part because that's like delegation, and I
oh,
love to
so you
delegate.
delegate to yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it like April and other April?
No, 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 no. It's, the calendar and me combat. So
Oh,
everything goes in the calendar, boss April puts it all in the calendar, and then employee April has to do it all. It's like, "Fuck this."
oh, man, that's funny. No, but I mean, it's true. That is true discipline because it's so easy to do what you're supposed to do because someone's screaming at you to do it.
Now that goes back to the 4,
Are you sure it's 4 or are you just inserting a random
just
number?
insert a random number,
Okay.
Gretchen Rubin, I think, and the 4 tendencies talking about inner motivation and the different
Oh,
motivations. I think that also maybe that kinda leads to a little bit of the mindset question that we had from the beginning is, what if you're a person who you are you're motivated by exterior influences, and so what do you have to do to create those exterior influences so you can get the things done that you need to be done? Whereas like our kid, we probably have a mixed bag in our home. where some of us are very interior motive. We don't need somebody on the outside telling us what to do for us to figure it out. That comes from the
Yeah.
inside. And then there might be a couple that are more like, I need that exterior motivation or the exterior pressure so that way I will actually get up and do it.
Yeah. Well, I always thought that I thought that I had the exterior thing 100% because certain goals, even though they were difficult, I was able to have the discipline to do like okay,
Mhm.
cool. I need to stay in shape. I work
Yeah.
really weird hours, and so
And you
and
wanted to go in the military,
it
so you applied yourself for that.
yeah,
Like,
and so and it was very difficult. I had to do it. I was
yeah,
working at night, and I would work out in the mornings and stuff like that, and it was
you were
insanely
working 3
difficult.
jobs and doing it. It was
Yeah,
hard. Yeah.
exactly. And so, but for some reason, I was able to do that. But then I don't know why that. But that wasn't. I guess that was interior. But no,
No, it was
it
exterior
was exterior.
'cause you had to test them. You had to pass these
Yeah,
exams and
that
pass
is
these
true.
whatevers, and
That is true.
you knew some people would be looking at your scores on how you did this, and so therefore
Um,
it's what
so
motivated that.
so I don't have outside motivation.
No,
You
you
know,
do.
you know what I should do? No,
What do
no.
you
Well, I need it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
I don't have
Well, you might have some insight.
inside.
There's a mix. It's been a minute. I shouldn't have done this podcast, like, years after I read the book.
No, no, this is good because this is what actually sticks around and um
So,
it
okay.
is a good book
It's an
because
amazing book.
it opens your eyes.
Yeah, but so there's another mix, and then there's the rebel who you just don't tell them what to do because then they will
Hmm.
do exactly the opposite. I will
Hmm.
not name names, but I know one.
That's interesting. So basically, I just need to hire like a virtual assistant to scream at me once a week.
Not even screaming. They can be so kind. It's just because you'll want to, like, not
They can be
please
like,
them, but you want them to be, like, think happy about you, and so
my,
you're like, "Oh."
yeah.
Yeah, so in that book, they do talk about that. They talk about having somebody that's your exterior, you know, pressure point motivator. I'm sure she uses better words than that, but it's been a minute since I read the book. But that's what stuck.
No, that's fascinating. I mean, so you could do some. I mean, someone in your life,
Yeah,
if you're if you're in a position where you couldn't hire someone,
you
which
just have a
probably lots of
friend.
people aren't,
Yeah, exactly. You just have a friend
then you
that
just
say,
have a
"Hey, can you
friend.
contact me by this date and ask me if I've done this?"
Oh man, that's really good. Deadlines. Deadlines are important because I hate the idea of having a deadline on anything, but then I realize that if I don't, I get zero
And
done.
are you one of the people that wait until right before the deadline to finish it?
No, actually, it's funny. I was having this conversation with Maddox and or one of our kids, I forget, and I can remember in school, or even if it's like a work deadline, I tend to try and get ahead of it,
Okay.
and I tend to like if you tell me, okay, in a month I want this, this, and this done. Like from my point of
Mhm.
view, and maybe this is just a little bit of I don't know. I don't think I'm like a rebel, but on the same token, I don't want to hear it from. I don't want to give my boss or whatever any
Or
excuse
your
to be able
wife?
to like say
Hmm.
something, and
I feel
so
like I can use this.
yeah. And so I tend to get ahead of it, and I tend to
Huh.
go through, knock it out, and then I'm like, "Cool, that's off my plate." Not which is probably a bad mindset
I don't know.
because
I
you
don't
can't.
think it's
Well,
bad. Why?
it's the idea of being able to get done with work, and it's like, well, if you're running a business or whatever you want to do,
Yeah, you're never
you're
done.
kind of never done, and so that can't be your metric for
No.
success.
No, no, definitely not for sure.
But I still don't feel like I've gotten any closer on the mindset thing on why certain people.
I mean, does it go back to genetics and the way you're wired to think?
Man, maybe.
But also on that same note, even if it does, doesn't that mean you have it in you to change it? Because our brain is malleable. We get to change it. We can change the way we think. So therefore, if we are brave enough to look at ourselves honestly and say, okay, this is my failings. These are where I really struggle. I need help here. You can change it.
Well, okay, it's funny you say that because that literally is 95% of my motivation for starting a podcast is literally because yes, 100%. I feel like anyone can do this, but I feel like most of it is lack of exposure to the idea, or
Mm,
even like lack of I don't know, like lack of
belief.
community or belief in themselves. Think about it. Like I look at my life, and I've been very lucky. I'm partnered with you and you have a really killer mindset and you always have, and like I don't have people in my life that are trashing me. I don't have people in my life that are
Yeah,
like, you know,
exactly.
but yet I still struggle to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish. And I'm like, Jesus, could you imagine if
Yeah.
you're in the person that's in an abusive relationship,
Yeah.
or the person that has really shitty friends or whatever, and and they don't want them to succeed because, like, you could be in friend groups or even family groups where if you do well, then you're just gonna get trashed
But
because it makes them feel bad about
no,
themselves.
and that's so true, but those things, what are they there for?
What do you mean?
Those are the things that are meant to, like, anytime you have a darkness, it's there to highlight what you don't want.
Oh, yeah.
So, just, like, from abusive relationships to toxic friendships and all those, it's kind of forcing you into awareness
Yeah.
that I don't want this. So, the version of success for that person is realizing and coming to an awareness that they don't want this, getting to know themselves.
Mm,
And for them, maybe it's just part of the process, and it's a horrible process because hard things are those kind of dark things are horrible. But it's part of the process of them learning for themselves what they want.
mm.
Because I just think a lot of that is them not having clarity on who they are and being comfortable with who they are and who they want to be and having a vision.
Wow. No, that's amazing. So you but again
I know.
but again, it's all mindset because one person could look at that. Let's say two people are in identically shitty situations. One says, "Hey, this is the universe giving me a great example of what I don't
But how do
want."
they get to that? Like, it takes years. Sometimes it could for some people, it just takes years. I've had the gift of having horrible things since I was young, and so for me, it was, like, constant in my head. I'm like, "Oh, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that." So maybe other people just have had a great childhood, but then something hard hits them later on in life, and they have to go through that. That's probably, I think, the human existence, the experience of being a human, and part of learning ourselves is going through the hardships.
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, look, yes, that's 100%. I think you're right because I hate to say it, but I mean that's really you're not going to become the person that you want to become without hardship, and whether that's
And
the
I don't think so,
universe.
but then also believe that, the universe or in God, they want good things for me, and I claim them and I accept them and all that. But I
Yeah.
don't know that I think it's in spite of the hard things.
Well, yeah, because then that does open. It's an interesting topic because it's like, does God, does you because you can think of some pretty dark things like everyone can that's happened in their life. It's like, well, wait a minute. If that was a tool for growth, then did God do that?
Oh, yeah, well, that's a whole nother
And
topic. I wanna get into that one.
that is yeah.
I always look at it like this. I work out, so literally I'm breaking if my muscles were people, I am literally breaking them down.
Why?
Yeah,
What?
exactly, and they're suffering. And then they grow back stronger. But it's because I know that when I'm working out, I'm doing certain things and I'm going to feed my body a certain way. I'm going to drink the water and do the electrolytes and all the things that I'm supposed to do, right? To help my muscles grow back stronger and healthier. And I think I've always equated my suffering, not anybody else's, because I can't speak to somebody else's experience, but that's how I've equated that's the lens from which I learned how to view my darkness, my suffering.
Man. No, that's amazing. I mean, that is the way to do it. So how do you okay, so okay, here's a good question because
Oh God.
one thing, well, I mean, the I look at your business, but you have the right mindset for life in general, but it was very much, like, brought to life even more so when you were building your business, and, what when I can remember you saying because you when you first started off, you had to do cold calls and you weren't established,
Yeah.
right? You didn't have reference, referrals and different stuff. You were just raw. You were just starting off, and I can remember you saying stuff like, "I've got to make." I'm just guessing at the number. I've got to make 100 phone. I've got to get 100 no's before I get a yes, or
Mhm.
something like that, or it was 80 or whatever it
Yeah, I
was.
can't
Um,
remember.
and then I can remember like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's what a good, mindset. And then some years later, when I tried to do my own business and I was trying to apply the same thing, I was just like, fuck this. It's just like, this is the worst thing ever. I'm calling these people and they don't like, they're like, what are you doing? I'm so busy. Why are you
Did you ever get
calling
yelled
me?
at?
Yes.
Oh, I got
And
yelled at a lot.
and I'm like, how did she do this?
Well, I had the same thoughts, but
But
I'm
you
a military
executed.
I'm a militant with my thoughts. I'm like, "That thought doesn't get to exist." That thought like, I throw it away.
Oh.
I just literally am like, "Yes, it fucking sucks. Put it away. Don't get the don't focus on that. Focus on
Oh,
this."
but okay, but that is the magic. That is the secret sauce. And it really it's about because literally that would I would be so discouraged. I'm like, "What am I doing?" But like a true salesman, woman, salesperson,
Oh, I hate
or
that word.
what.
Consultant.
Yeah. Well, that no, yeah, I mean, for sure. But I mean, but truly, I mean, there are people that would view themselves purely as a salesperson
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, I don't, but
that
yeah.
have the right mindset, and they're just, when someone yells at them or they're rude or whatever, or you can just tell there's like that general disdain for
Yeah,
the for the
yeah,
interaction. They just brush it off. And so okay, so mindset.
because it's not you. You know, literally, you can have compassion on those people and be like, "Dang, they are having a terrible day if they're just gonna yell at somebody that's calling them about what they love about their neighborhood."
Yeah, no,
You know
that
what
is,
I'm saying? Like, I'm like,
yeah,
that I'm like, "Oh god, poor baby. They're just struggling."
yeah, no, that is
So it's just kinda
true.
switching it and being like, "You know, it's not me. They don't know me.
Yeah,
They don't even know who I am, so I know it's not me. It's them in their life." I know when people call me on the phone, I'm not rude. I'm like, "There's no reason to be rude."
yeah,
And actually, and if I ever were even tempted to be rude, it's because I'm having a really bad day.
yeah.
And so instead of being rude, I'm like, "Oh, I gotta go." You know?
No, and so yeah, no, you're right. Because for me at work, like for some reason stuff like that was always easy.
I
You
think
know,
because
it
you expect it.
yeah, I guess so. Because I'm like, you're not really that mad at me. Well, maybe sometimes they are, but 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 I'm like in
I mean, more
general,
mad at
like,
themselves than you.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, or they're mad at the last officer. They
Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah.
that's the old saying. It's like people are really treating you based on their last
Yeah.
encounter,
Exactly.
honestly.
Because they come at it
Um,
defensively.
and I don't blame them. And
Exactly.
there's that's a whole different topic too. But like, it's what you do with it. So I guess in my mind, if I'm at work, over the years at work, whatever negativity I'm experiencing, I guess in my mind, I'm like, well, this guy's having a bad day, or like, yeah, this does suck, but I mean, there's nothing anyone can
Yeah.
do about it. But it's not really. I don't take it personally, and so for you, having the right mindset to execute on doing your cold calling or lead generation or whatever you call it really is about, you said, militant thinking.
Yes.
So unpack that.
Oh god. It's just not letting the negative thoughts live there, and that might psychologically not be very healthy. I think what I've learned
Are you gonna snap one day?
yeah, no. I think what I learned is that I have to that's why I have thinking time. So my thinking time is to where I can in the moment when I'm in traction, trying to get something done and focused on something that I need to do, I can't you can't abide by distractions. And so the negative thoughts that would be in the way, my obstacles, I put them to the side. And if they're worth thinking about later, I can bring them up later in my thinking time and process through, okay, why did that bother me so much? And then I can do a deep dive into what is actually inside of me that is causing that comment or that whatever to bother me. Am I
Mm,
feeling insecure? Am I scared? Like what's going on there versus in the moment, that's not the time to have those emotions and it's not time to think about it. So this is my robot self. I just tuck it away, pick it up later if it's worth the time, or if it's so then I can unpack it later because I don't have to unpack it in the moment. This is why I have thinking
wow.
time.
Wow. So literally, how do you recall it? How do you, is it just,
Oh, this is where I'm an absolute, I don't know, which I don't know. They just come back to me. The things that I need to focus on. So in my thinking time, it's all about getting really well, being very very grateful, doing my mantras, focused on that, getting into a very safe space, and then just letting my brain take me on a ride. And it's a super fun time. And so sometimes it's thinking through the things I'm insecure about or fearful of or whatever's happened. And those moments will come back to me. The things that I need come back to me to process through.
Wow. That's amazing. That's probably the biggest thing I struggle with is trusting things like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of trust.
Wow. Okay, so this alludes to something you coined this phrase and I love it. It's
Oh,
it's the emotional management system.
I love it.
And but it really is true. You literally have to be militant with your thoughts.
Hmm.
And that's really what it comes down to. Okay, here's a concept, and obviously you know this because you've obviously lived it for a long time. But there was, I forget if it was a book or something. But the question was, are you higher than your thoughts?
Hmm.
And I guess it's kind of a religious, spiritual type question
Oh, I don't know.
because,
I don't think so. I think that's a like absolute cognitive.
well, but I mean, if you were an atheist and you thought, I've got a brain and I've got a body, then I don't know. Like would they
You can
think?
still observe your thoughts.
But yeah, but I mean but that still implies that there's a consciousness above the level of your physical brain.
Do you think atheists believe they don't have a something else inside of them that's not physical?
That's a good
I don't
question.
know either.
That's a really good question. I mean, I would assume
I
that,
would
but
think
that's
that
an
if
ignorant
yeah, I
assumption.
would say atheists don't believe there is a God, but does that also mean they don't believe there's a spiritual or spirit-like component of their soul?
I don't know. I mean,
Or how would they qualify what we call a soul?
I don't know. Well, I don't know because I mean, and again, I mean, like this is just me guessing, but I mean,
Apparently, we're not atheists.
yeah. Well, I mean, okay, an atheist, and I'm probably butchering this, so I apologize to all the atheists out there, but like the idea is that you live and you die and that's it, and we are just like
Yeah.
there's nothing else, and so I think that from their point of view, there would be no soul because, and maybe I'm just,
But what about your artist? Like, when an artist creates, which we all are creators like that in some way, shape, or form, it comes from a deeper place than your brain.
I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
mean,
I don't know. I am not the expert there at all.
yeah, I don't know. I mean,
So
from
why
my
were we talking about that?
Well, but because the idea, the emotional management system,
Oh.
and the idea that you're higher than your thoughts, and so from my point of view, I take that from a spiritual because I do believe in God, and I do believe that we have souls that are inside of our bodies, and so that was a big breakthrough for me because for a long time I've never thought of it like that. I mean, even when I was younger, I
You
was,
did you think that your thoughts and you were the same?
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
Literally, when I was a little kid, this is so embarrassing.
Oh, please do
Oh
tell.
god. So so when I was a little kid, and if I was racked with insecurity, which I was, then if I had like a negative thought about like, "Oh god, I hope at school tomorrow someone doesn't say something or someone doesn't make fun of me." If I had that thought,
Mhm.
then literally I assumed that, well, I must have had that thought because it's probably going to happen. And like
Oh,
so this is like my heads up, and so then I would worry about it, and I would like simmer
great.
and like manifest
And
that
anxiety.
negativity. And it's just because I was always like sort of trapped in my own head. And so, yeah, I think I don't know how old I was when I kind of realized, like, wait a minute, my thoughts don't really mean shit.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they do and they don't. I mean, you know what I'm saying, but they don't necessarily mean anything, and it could just
Until
be my
you
brain running wild from being exhausted or
yeah,
being,
exactly.
whatever. And yeah, and so the idea that you're higher than your thoughts, and it's like, oh, okay, well then maybe I'm in charge here, and then maybe I can delegate.
And here's that goes back to my not I will not get into all of this, but in my
Yes, you
my
will.
no,
I'm just
no.
kidding.
My darkness started very young with very dark thoughts. And so I had to learn from way back then. I'm like, "Oh, that's a weird thought. I'm not going to listen to that one."
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I
Well,
mean, young, very, very young. I can remember thinking some extremely dark thoughts, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's not okay. Like, let's just not
no, that
listen to that
makes,
one."
yeah,
So I
okay.
think for me, I've been experiencing yeah, we don't need to be thinking
Yeah. Well, that
So
that
I
that
had
makes
to
yeah, that makes total sense. Well, it applies, across the board. I mean, because once you realize, I mean, whatever your like religious or philosophical background, because I'm sure like atheists or whatever religion or standpoint you come from, there has to be a way to appreciate the fact that our brains just run off certain programming,
Yeah, of
and that's
course.
okay.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of like controlling that and literally, being able to like zip it,
Mhm.
to be able to zip that.
I don't know
Um,
if I would say zip it because it's not like you wanna shut it down. It's like watching something come to you and being like, "Oh, well, that's not really valid, or that's not true, so I'm gonna tuck that thing over here." There's like a
uh,
lie trash can. This one goes in the lie trash can, and then this one's like, "Oh, well, that's interesting. I need to unpack that, so I'm gonna put it over here."
okay, so here's an okay, so interesting thought, because my mind always goes to, because we talked about self awareness, and my mind always goes to, well, how do you, if you're struggling with self awareness, or even if you're good at it, we still have blind spots.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, well, how do you kind of identify, like a little bit of detective work? How would you even know where to look to find those blind spots, or to find the like the recurring thoughts that you need to be able to do something with?
So, one of my things that I feel like has helped me somewhat there, not all I mean, obviously, I still have blind spots, but is to, first be brave enough to be very honest, but then to ask the questions is like, y what is my motive here? Is it if it's not out of love, if my motive is truly not out of love, like, just breaking it down, so coming to my neutral space, so I have this space in my brain or my heart, my body, that's very neutral, and, so any thought that comes to mind is brought up to my neutral self, and in my neutral self, it's asking, "Where's the motivation here? Is it out of love, like, out of pure love? And if it's not out of 100% love, then what part of it is not?" Because sometimes it's a mixed bag. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, "Okay, so these are my actual honest thoughts," and this is what I do in thinking time is kinda bringing it through and being like, "Well, is there fear? Is there any kind of fear? Is there anger? Is there, scarcity?" However you say that word. Is there something else that's not love? And when I look at it and try to figure out what is it over here, like whether it's like 5% or 10% of something of the totality is this, then it's breaking it down into what's causing that, and just being asking just continuing to ask myself questions of, well, what about this is causing me to fear? What am I scared of? What happens if this fear becomes reality, or what am I trying to avoid by not looking at it the opposite way? So it kind of goes back to the idea of holding two contrasting thoughts in my brain at the same time, or in your thoughts at the same time. It's like this is what it should look like in pure love, but yet I have this over here. And so I'm going to compare and contrast the two and be like, so what's different? And why? And why? And literally ask myself, what's different about this, and why am I feeling this? And just sit with it. Sometimes I just have to sit with it and ask for guidance on what I'm feeling.
Oh man, that is like that's the money right there, is being is being able to figure out like your motivation.
Mhm.
And it really broadly speaking comes down to love or fear.
Mhm.
Because you said scarcity, and that's something that I struggle with, because that's been a huge area of growth for me, feeling like, any little bit of money that I can get my hands on, I just gotta like
Yeah.
hang on to it like
Yeah.
Gollum
Yeah.
or something, and then the idea is being able to dig down and establish your motivations.
Mhm.
Am I doing this? Is it 50-50 love and fear? Is it 100% fear driven? Um,
And if it's fear, what digging down into it further and trying to figure out, well, where does that fear come from? What am I actually really scared of? Sometimes I just have to journal and I literally write out the question and sit with it for a minute. And sometimes I can answer it writing and it comes to me better, or sometimes it's just in thought. And then just keep on digging. So digging why, until I actually get to the bottom.
oh man, that is so hard to do,
Yeah, it's very hard to do.
because I feel I feel like it is so easy to deceive yourself. Okay, I feel like do you feel like that?
No.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Well, I can do it
No.
easy.
No. You know why? Okay, I was thinking about this morning. So every morning I wake up, not every morning, okay. There's a lot of mornings that I will wake up with, like, a ball of anxiety in my body, and so in my stomach. It's always in my stomach. So that's why I do meditation, because it helps me get to a place where it's not like that. So I can really feel my body relax after I do my gratitudes and all this other stuff that I have to do to get there. A lot of work. But so what happens is when I'm in my thinking time, I have to be in that neutral place, because what happens is I can't deceive myself in neutral, because my body literally tenses up. And when my body tenses up, there's a no.
Oh, wow.
So that's always a guide for me, so I can, if my body's flowing and there's, like, pure love and it feels amazing, I'm in a good space and I can be honest with myself. But what it does, it literally exposes the truth for me. So I'll bring the thought there, and it's very, very clear if it's honest or true. Plus, why would I want to deceive myself?
Ugh.
What's in it for me to deceive
Well,
myself?
I think most people deceive themselves out of fear, maybe because they can't face something.
Okay, but what is their fear of?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the deception, but if you're deceiving yourself that, like, "I'm a good person," or
It always comes back to being a good person. Almost always. I don't know. I don't know for everybody, but I do know if you're trying to deceive yourself, it's because you're scared of who you really are. And what if we learn to just accept that that's my part of me that's not the greatest? That's the part of me that, like, oh, I'm bitchy. That's there. That's real. I have a short temper. Like, that's real. Why run from it? Because I definitely can't change it through running from it.
yeah.
I can only change it through addressing it head on and doing something about it.
Well, I'm never bitchy.
No, you're a diva.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, and honestly, I mean, for I guess for me at least, because you asked the question, why would people be afraid of that? Well, it's because you're afraid that you won't be accepted. You'll be,
Uh,
it comes down to like
by
some very
oh,
basic
by okay, by other
by your tribe, or I mean,
okay.
I feel like we're still wired, and I think they call
That's
it,
the lizard brain. That goes
yeah,
right back to the lizard brain.
yeah,
You need a tribe. You wanna have a tribe, and
yeah,
I do, and I don't know, this might be crazy. This might be also psychologically not healthy, but I think there's power in learning how to stand on your own 2 feet and knowing that you don't have to be accepted by others and accepting yourself first.
yeah. Well, and ironically, that turns you into a leader, which then you create your own tribe,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
to speak.
absolutely. Yeah.
God, and leadership is something that's something, like, even at this point in my life, that I'm learning. Leadership is so much like, true leadership is so different than what I thought it really
And
was.
you have to be okay with knowing that you're being criticized at all times. And
Yes.
that's okay. Like, that's fine. They're not
Yes.
in your position. They don't, it's not their space. Like, you wanna give them, space to have a word where they need to have the words, but it doesn't have to drive your
Yeah.
decision.
And true leaders, especially in emerging fields, or
Mhm.
emerging philosophies or whatever that are being criticized. I mean, it gives me a such a like a more clear admiration for people in history that you look at, that I mean, like, think about civil rights, for example.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, back in this day and age, like, we I don't think we can really appreciate how fundamentally fucked up our society was in that day and age, and then the people that started to say, like, "No, this is awful,
Yeah.
guys," and, like, people that first took up that, mantle, or whatever you call it, like, the social pressure that they must
Mhm.
have experienced, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's unimaginable, and it gives me such an, like an appreciation for what they must have gone through. Like, imagine the criticism,
Yeah.
from all around, from family, from
Because they were
friends,
thinking different and
because they were
therefore
e
acting different.
exactly, and basically society at large is like, "What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?" It's, yeah, that's insane, and they had to, I mean, you think of people like that had to have had a good thought life. They had to have had a system for dealing with those thoughts and that
I think they
negativity.
had but I think I mean, a lot of times it's like having just your mantra, like, what do you say in response to it? And that's just your ready, go ready every single time, this is what you say in response to it inside your brain. So it
Man.
doesn't have a space. So you don't have to, like, wrestle with it every time. You just
Yeah.
handle it.
That's what that's the part that I struggle with personally, and I've done lately, I don't know, maybe the last 6 months or a year, I've done better with, because it's almost like ruminating thoughts, because whatever your insecurity is or whatever the fear is, it's easy to it's easy to think about it for a while and then sort of argue it back and forth in your head. Here's both sides of it, and then you come to a conclusion, and then, okay, cool, I feel much better. That makes sense. But then a week later, you find yourself going through those same motions to come to that same conclusion,
So and
as opposed to just hanging on to the answer, and then
and
that being your
answering it.
answer next time that thought hits you. Because
Is that because it hasn't because you haven't cemented that down and said, "Well, here's my mantra and this is what I'm doing." Or here's my saying, this is what I'm doing.
yeah, probably. I mean,
Like being intentional about it.
yeah. Well, and literally that's when probably the most progress that I've made with my mindset, and um, just like being able to start to move in a direction to accomplish what I want to accomplish, is writing stuff down. Like
Mhm.
writing down the mantras, like you
Mhm.
say, and then literally setting alarms. I like alarms on my watch or on my phone to make me remember to read them
Mhm. Well,
daily.
because 'cause you're rewiring your brain.
You literally
Mhm.
are rewiring your brain.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that is important, and that actually, this would be a whole great, like, conversation by itself, but the idea, is to figure out, like, as far as where you might start, is to start by establishing, like, "Hey, what are my main negative core beliefs?"
Mhm.
And, they're different in
And
everybody,
digging
obviously.
deep to find them.
Yeah, digging down and figuring out, and, like, usually it's layers and layers deep.
And
So
you
it's
just sometimes you just need to focus on one. It's too many at too many times is hard.
yeah,
So you just focus on
yeah,
one.
that is true, and that would eventually unlock the rest.
Yeah, it does.
But the broad overall concept is
Mhm.
identify your top negative core beliefs, or I guess all of them eventually. Maybe there's
Mhm.
5, maybe there's 1, whatever it is, and then take those and figure out what they are, and then develop mantras for
Mhm.
each one, and then then you sort of like, for me personally, I wrote down my negative core beliefs, and then I only kept them in writing as long as it took to get
Mhm.
the positive, the better version of the code for my
Yeah.
brain,
Yeah.
and then I deleted it.
Yeah. No,
Because
that I love that.
you
I love
know,
that.
but then it was a matter of, then you're reading those things daily, and yes, it's like weird, but our brains are
It's
literally
so wild. I
computers.
remember one of mine is, I trust that I'm guided every day. And, I was talking to Kelly, and we were talking about something, I can't even remember what, but literally I said it in conversation, but it came out without me planning it or thinking about it as my mantra. It came out as, "Well, I trust that I'm guided every day." Like that, like a full on 100% belief, and I just like, when I said it, I was like, "Oh, wait, that's my mantra. That's what I believe." But it was weird because it hit me like, "Oh, I actually believe that."
So it literally became part of you.
Yeah, it became part of me. I'm like, "Well, I know I'm guided every day. Like, I know this."
Well,
It's so wild, but it was weird. It was a weird feeling, a very weird
that's a good feeling.
it was a good feeling, but it was also like, it just it caught me off guard because I wasn't saying it like, "Oh, that's my mantra." I literally came out like, "My name is April. I'm guided every day."
So it had to go through layers and layers of
It
your
was a
psyche, and
year of focusing on that specific thought and being thankful for that, and then trusting it when it was really hard not to trust it.
oh, man. Okay, so sometimes, like, and I know different people talk about, manifesting things, and how you have to, how certain ideas have to make it to a, like, a visceral level in your body. But there are times, if I'm talking about my mantras, or if I'm sort of visualizing what I want my future to look like, sometimes you get to a point at which it's like a very excited feeling
Mhm.
because you feel like you start to feel like it's already happened,
Yeah.
and it's sort of a fleeting feeling, and maybe maybe the point is to get to that point all the time, and then it really
Mhm.
will happen. But I think it's kind of the same thing. It's like daily programming your brain in a good way because
Mhm.
you're being programmed no matter what.
Yeah,
You just don't
exactly.
realize it.
Mhm.
And so I think the goal is like to be intentional, with that programming.
Yeah.
Oh man. And it's so I don't know if you experience this, but I this is why writing it down was so important to me and setting alarms because I've done this a million times. You you go through and have this realization about yourself and about what you really want and how to get there, and you it all makes sense and you
Mhm.
feel it and you're like, yes. And you write it down or whatever, you talk about it with someone close to you, and it just makes sense, and you feel this momentum start to build, and you're just like, yes, this is amazing. And then either the next day or the next week you sort of wake up and you're like, you realize that you've already kind of forgotten about it. And then when you think about it now, it feels so negative because you feel like, oh, I blew it. And I could never make that happen. And
Oh, well, that's
like
terrible.
it really
It's
is.
terrible.
It really is. And I don't know what that is exactly, but the way that I have kind of overcome that
Yeah.
is with the mantras and setting alarms on my phone and my watch to read them,
Mhm.
because inevitably the first few days you feel good, or maybe like the first week or whatever, you feel good and you're reading them like, yes, this makes sense. But then you have that off day,
Mhm.
and then the alarm goes off, and you're like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, no, no, you set an alarm.
It's just like push-ups, just do them.
And so you do it, and then even as you're reading it, you're like, "This is bullshit. What was I thinking?" Like,
Yeah.
this was one of the million things that I've done that I was excited in the moment,
Yeah.
but now I'm back in reality." But then it's like, no, no. If you push through that, and
Mhm.
if you stick to it, it might last a day or a week or however long.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed in my own life, finally, I'm like, I just kept pushing through it, and then eventually, it's almost like the top easy level of code. I think of it
Mhm.
like a computer. So that first initial level of code is sort of easier to access,
Yeah.
but then to really get deep down inside where it counts, it almost has to your mind and body almost have to go through like this
They
negativity.
do. It's kinda like when
And
you lose weight, like, when you're overweight, like, it's easier to lose maybe the first 10 pounds, but they always talk about how, like, the last 5 to 10 is the hardest, and it seems like that is the same
yes.
concept, like, it's and it's funny because I feel like we give less credence to our positive thoughts than we do our negative thoughts.
Oh,
So, like,
100%.
being excited about something and excited and understanding that on the other side of excitement is always fear can be over here on the
Yes.
other side. They're kind of connected in some ways, not always, but um, th- being excited about something can have just as much weight as our negative thoughts and even more. And like believing, well, if I could believe I could, then why am I believing that I can't now? Like, why does that get so much power?
Yes. And why does it feel so overwhelming?
Yeah. Well, there's fear of failure. There's a lot of fears in there. Overwhelming just means there's fear. There's fear of something and just breaking it down.
Being
I'm trying to think, is there something you should end it on? Like, specific to mindset?
Ooh, yes. Yes, okay, yes. So that what yeah, there is, and that's kinda why I was getting into the whole idea of trying to, like, identify core beliefs and stuff. And so, yeah, I would say to end it like this. So, if you are looking for any kind of a change in your life, or you have a goal that you're having a hard time, meeting, look for like any kind of clusters of energy, or like repeated patterns of behavior in your life. If you're struggling to find like, well, where would I start? It's like those, what are you doing over and over again that's not good for you? Like, what
Mhm.
decision are you making over and over again?
And
Um,
and if you can't figure that out, it's ask yourself, what are you scared of? What do you automatically say no to? And then look into that.
yes, and then start digging in
Yeah.
to why, be like the toddler. Why?
Yeah, that
Why?
is exactly
Well,
what
then
it takes.
why?
Yeah, you gotta be very, very curious.
Yeah, and then if you're really brave, ask your friends or your family,
Yeah,
like, "What do you
some
see?"
family.
Yeah. No, that is true. You would
Ask a good friend and a
yeah,
trusted companion,
yeah, and yeah, someone that will be honest with you
but kind.
and but kind of be like, "What do you well, what do you see?" 'Cause usually from their point of view, it's, like, mad obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and then so then basically, like, that for me, that was a huge, first step was just, dig down, identify at least one of those negative core beliefs, and then literally develop a mantra or a handful of mantras that combat that, and then set 3 alarms a day
Mm, that's
and
very
just
practical, that's good.
yeah, and that's what I did, and
Yeah.
honestly, I've kind of fallen off that, it's a good reminder for me to
Well, and then
jump.
and as you grow, you get to change those, so that's fun.
Yeah. But it sounds so silly, and just I guess I would end it on this. You if you really do that, whether you go through and find your negative core beliefs first or not, or if you just think of, a handful of things like, "Hey, if I just read these things a few times a day, it would probably change something."
Mhm.
Be prepared to feel really good about it for a time,
Yeah.
and then be prepared to feel like a fucking idiot
Mhm. No, it's
for a
true.
time, but if you stick through that, what
Mhm.
be thankful when you reach that point, whether it's the next day or a
Yeah.
month later, and you're starting to feel stupid about it and like an idiot, like, man, if anyone knew I was doing this, they would laugh at me, like the guys at work would laugh at me.
Oh,
If you can stick through that,
yeah.
that's like be thankful when you're there because that means you're really
You're coming
close
close. That's
to
the breakthrough through a breakdown kind of piece. And it's funny, I
exactly.
had that same experience today because today I woke up funky and I couldn't connect with my during my thinking time. I couldn't connect with that. It's like this gratitude that I do, and I could not connect with it. And so my trick has always been just repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it until you feel the change in your heart. And I'm not kidding you, that's how it goes down. So I'll start going through my gratitudes of like what I'm thankful for. My mantra is I am loved, and so it's always like, I am loved, I am loved, I'm loved, and like blah, 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 blah. And then eventually it comes true. Eventually I feel it that same day. It just
Wow.
takes a lot of time, like sometimes an hour of repeating it.
God, that's it's so yeah.
And then eventually it's like I am loved to where I am loved. And it changes and I'm like, oh, there it is.
Wow. It really is all about pushing through the whatever everyone's version is different, probably based on their own insecurities.
Yeah.
So if you're a guy, then it's like, well, the guys at work would make fun of me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And if
I
you're a
don't know.
girl, it's
I'm like, I
whatever.
don't know. Like, I'm like, I don't know if
Yeah,
I'd ever think about it like
yeah.
that.
But no, that's true. It really is. It's like
Mine
being
would be more like, is this ever really gonna happen?
yeah.
It's like, eh.
No, that is true.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess that's a good ending thought is like whatever you're doing right now to better yourself, be thankful when you reach the "this is fucking stupid"
Mhm.
phase, because that's like that means you've done it long enough to get through the first level of programming,
Yeah.
and now you're into like the hard drive or like
Yeah. I don't
computer
know.
people would like you're into the
I don't even know.
you're into
I'm
the
not a computer
bytes.
person. I would just say you're in it, and then on the other side is where you come out of it.
Yeah, that's a high five.
Okay. That's good.
Thanks, babe. That was amazing.
Oh, I have oh,
That was super fun.
it was fun. I don't know if it was amazing, but it was fun.
It was amazing. That was everything I wanted it to be.
Well, good. I'm glad.